It has been a little over 2 years, I think, at this point, since I watched the Hunger Games series for the first time. The feature films. Not yet the prequel, of course. I know that one's... I haven't even covered it yet. I know the trailer's been out for some time. I keep meaning to. I think it's a prequel. Anyway, I know they're trying to bring it back in some way. But the original film series, the first 4, in fact, I binged it while I was on vacation at one time, because I needed something to watch. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I never saw the Hunger Games. I bought the DVDs at Never Store like a while back, thinking one day I will. I hadn't yet, but I did at that point. And though it's been, as I said, a number of years, I have not forgotten my reverence to them as such strong fantasy fiction. With certain, I would say, definitely mimicked real-world tones. It's quite an inspired series when I think back on it. It was a great experience. Although, admittedly, I did forget about the number. So, as I've been doing with the Dark Side of the Moon and consulting their work, especially for the covers that they've provided on this first project, Metamorphosis, that I had not heard yet, I've been going back and listening to the tunes that originally inspired these pieces that we're about to entertain, including this one. And it's an exquisite work, though. I mean, it has a great personality as a cinematic piece that I think is going to be quite impressive to hear where the Dark Side of the Moon takes it. There are some points of, I think, cohesion on style, though the Dark Side of the Moon does rest more in a rock metal territory than, that original number did. That's much more like a cinematic film soundtrack piece. Although to be fair, though, the Dark Side of the Moon has produced some works that could easily fit into that mold. Truly, I believe. There's just a couple connection points, I think, on scale, on tone, especially with Melissa Bonney's voice. I'm curious to see how that'll play out. I mean, I think it'd be quite complimentary to Jennifer Lawrence's original. I mean, I don't know. We're going to see for ourselves, of course, and, temporarily, though as far as I'm concerned, doors always open for the future of the Dark Side of the Moon as a supergroup, and I do hope there's a future. I want more from them. This first project has been exquisite. But with this cover, we are wrapping out my, as promised, journey that I'd be taking with you on part of a full album consideration. Granted, again, I started with the singles and then I promised it later when I decided to finish it out, though I'd been thinking to for a while now. It's been a pleasure to humor this group, and it truly feels like an honor to spotlight again such great talents in the music scene, especially among the European rock and metal variety, which I can't get enough of, many of you know. And maybe some of you are approaching this again, as I always say, on a first-name basis. A supergroup project, think of this with the Dark Side of the Moon, just again, set a good entry point for you, of which you should as well consult their earlier pieces we've looked at on this channel together, or soon to be together, perhaps, for you. A combination of supergroup presence among their members being from Ad Infinitum, Feuerschwangs, and Amaranth, all favorites of mine. Certain elements on part of, again, what the artists are known for in those upper spheres, mixed together to create such a unique vision in the fantasy territory. I'm truly amazed at this band's ability to sit in the middle space, and adequately, never really middle space, to sit in two spheres. Fresh transformations of original works that don't lose in any way the original essence or reverence deserved. They capture both sides so well with their pieces. And when you consider the landscape of covers, there's quite a variety where artists can go and the choices that they make. The Dark Side of the Moon kind of, plays around a bit, from what I've heard, but they truly do sit in both sides, right? In fresh and reverential. With such successfulness, I'm amazed at them. They, in my opinion, are a top-tier cover presence in the music sphere. I've been very impressed, and I've covered a good helping of covers on this channel from, again, a wide variety of artists. But my mind keeps resting back on this group. I'm just so impressed. And I've re-listened to a lot of the works by now. Not everything yet, because again, I'm covering the last 3 I haven't gotten to yet as of today. But as I said earlier, it's been an honor to spotlight them and to perhaps share in that love with you. If music in any way on this channel, and this is a hope of mine as I build it out here, because again, it's a first love for me, if we can have a shared experience, I do hope that for those of you, this is going to be a fresh introduction. And I cover a broad range of groups intentionally, especially on name regard, to provide this doorway. If you're not familiar with talents that I've come to experience, whether it be simultaneously with you for the first time, or I've long humored, right? But maybe you haven't yet. I truly hope to inspire you by setting paths for considerations that you will embark on later. But I've been very impressed, and I hope you will be too if this is a first introduction for you. For you longtime Dark Side of the Moon fans, and anybody who's very well accustomed to this point to Ad Infinitum, Feuerschwanks, and Amaranth, I know you're just as impressed as I am, at least, again, with 10 pieces. I've had a great time. I'm sure this will qualify, absolutely. But it'll be interesting to hear again the transformation and where this piece goes. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the song, and we can have a simultaneous experience of listening to it together and entertaining it for the first time, as well as, if you're not familiar with my coverage, lyrics will be incorporated into the video directly. You'll be able to see those pop up in a minute if you want to follow along with the narrative as stated in the song as we proceed our way through. Without further ado, the Hanging Tree. Here we go. This is a shift. Okay. Accelerated pacing, and it starts on a music riff. That's very different because there was no musical cue on behalf of the original soundtrack piece. That background with the effects, I love that. Man, this piece has great presence. And the pace is highly effective. I like this retelling. That's a good summer piece for us, I think. This is like classic rock and roll mood with a metal foundation. And then it jumps into the symphonic with such a vivid individual presence. I love this. You can hear like those slight horn effects or something. I'm trying to place what instrument it is, but it's just so beautiful. Key change? And what an interesting transitional linger on that too. I'm taking this in.
Strange things that happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where dead men call down, fires have to flee? Strange things that happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to
So they're keeping the pacing even here. I'm trying to hear if they're slowing it down at all. They might be. Yeah, they are. I am so glad I decided to finish this album out with you. This track is so different. Man, they're adventurous. And great finish of that background scream layering. Love that. Just go for it. Wow. You know, I've said it before in many respects. There's an expression in the entertainment sphere, largely among Hollywood cinema, especially among fans, of subverting expectations. And it's usually used in the negative, because oftentimes you see art. That's what I like about music. I don't have to be a negative Nelly in other respects, where in other art spheres, I've seen a failing of competent delivery. Music, oh no, this is so different. It's always a pleasure to entertain the music on this channel. There's not been one song I've not liked. So when I say subvert expectations, I mean it in a positive. As I said, I did not know where they take that. That was far different on imagination in the cover sphere. Some artists choose to keep tunes in a streamlined, faithful vision that's much more narrow, again, in their variants, versus others that take on far different directions and employ a variety of different tools and assets, and that might work well, it might not. Luckily on this channel, it's been the case of the former. And I have to say, with this one, it's funny, that I think that's the philosophy. As I said in the last video, I realized this. Metamorphosis, the title, is such a fitting description for any of these covers. Because it truly feels like these songs are entertaining, in part, a metamorphosis from their original pieces that inspire them to this new vision. That's like the philosophy more so of this song, but it's just, subvert expectations, I think, is like one of the best descriptors I can think of. This track, because again, I consider it in conjunction to the other covers, and whereas those songs are much more explicitly tied, this one goes in a far different direction. It's almost like, let's speak about like other examples and varieties of cover approaches. I always think about this again when I bring it up, because again, it definitely showed contrast in genre and in key choice. Longtime favorite of mine, and I cannot wait for the new album. I'm dying to cover it. Red. Big favorite. They've been for like since 2009, I think. So 13, 14 years? Yeah, I've been a fan for a while of them. Big in the Christian rock sphere. They've been for a number of years, although they certainly have mainstream appeal. And if you've never entertained them, they're much more like they play around with a bit of a variety in the rock sphere. They have some songs that go down the more metal path, others are more ballad. They've got some, at least on one of their albums, that kind of went for a pop flair too. Real symphonic vibe and part of their strings use. That's very explicit to their identity. I can't wait to hear more. I am so excited for Rated R. I'm just ready and waiting for June 16th, I believe, is when the first single comes out. Oh, I'm so excited to bring them on here. I've been waiting for a long time. Anyway, I'm not going on a unnecessary tangent. Their album, let me confirm this. They did a cover a while ago for Sia's Unstoppable off of what project? Gone. That changed, as I said, in key, in genre. Pacing was probably close. Yeah, I think the pacing was the same. But there were points of deviation where it made the work feel quite different from Sia's. And I like the original piece. I'm not a big pop music guy, but especially in the Hollywood sphere, I tend to gravitate more to the metal and alternative spheres. I always have, well, at least for a good number of years of my life. But the transformation there was so different that you're like, okay, but it made sense, right? It worked equally, I thought. I would say that's a good comparable to explain, but even this one has, I think, a higher degree of variance. I was going to say, like, it's I think, an interesting parallel to set for discussing and considering the hanging tree on part of A Dark Side of the Moon. This is very different from Jennifer Lawrence's version, for sure. On the opener, much different structure. They just go right forward on the metal side. Just bring the music in, whereas her, it was an independent vocalization. And then it came in later. And it's on the ending, though, I thought that symphonic twist would come in where I'm like, okay, now I can see where The Dark Side of the Moon might have an edge. But again, it's considering their work if the song were done similarly. But instead, The Dark Side of the Moon chooses to take this whole new approach to it. Quicken the pacing, make it much more aggressive, change the key up as well, slow the pacing down midway as well on the bridge section. They really changed that up. And they kind of, again, like I said, they screw with your expectations, but in a great way. Like, I was not expecting where they would go. That is a piece that definitely has independent character for sure. Again, there is a case to be made for subversion done well. And that's it. See, it can be done in a positive respect. It's not always bad, right? Sometimes you can add on such an interesting flair that you sit back and you're like, what am I... Again, you can probably experience that. It's almost like, where do I start with this piece? Because I mean, I just kind of got lost in it, being like, it's so different from where I expected it would go. But the familiar traits, again, managed very well. The percussion work, much more explicit there on part of Morton. I was very impressed with that. Mixed with a good, cohesive, classic rock and roll vibe, married with metal. I like that tone a lot. And the vocal layering, I love how Melissa snuck in a growl there. It was perfect. Again, she's so capable. That piece just offers a lot. I feel like I'm not even doing it justice of just one take. It's an immediate re-listen. It certainly compels that, especially in going back and listening to the original tune and being like, okay, let me listen to these two again side by side and consider where Dark Side of the Moon went. I like it, though. It's quite interesting. I could imagine maybe a case for a mixture of opinion. I don't know. Because I'm basing this, I don't know necessarily, where everybody who's listened to The Hanging Tree and reveres it as an individual tune might sit. Because, music is subjective, especially in the cover space. We might like the original piece, we might not, or we might like the cover, we might not. I think both are good. It's just they're so drastically different, and this piece is definitely set apart on ambition. It still has a point of reference, but it's a definite reimagining. I'd love to hear what your feelings are on it down below, as well as your point of access as well. Longtime fan, first introduction. Be aware, if you're coming down a first introduction territory, their other works are, I think, more explicitly linked to the original pieces on sound. This takes a bit of a separate approach, but I like it. It does sit apart. Maybe that's like the key choice of it. It's a piece that sits in its own space, right? Maybe even that can be, a quality in itself worth revering. I mean, the piece, I think, is fun and competent. It's so great on rhythm and feeling. I'd love to hear, as I said, your take of it down below and how you approach the piece. I'm still sitting with it, but it's a great wrap-up for The Dark Side of the Moon. Again, what we've taken as a journey thus far, and I can't wait for more. I hope there is more. As far as I'm concerned here, as I said, doors always open. I'm game whenever more releases, especially in the way of covers or fresh tunes, because those have been of equal regard for me with The Dark Side of the Moon. I am ready and waiting. And The Hanging Tree, I think I need to sit with it even longer, but I'm sure on subsequent listens it'll be even more so revered on me, but that's a piece that sticks with you on Vision. It's quite fulfilling. Different, but extremely interesting. And that's been general mainstay on part of Metamorphosis. I can't wait to see what's birthed from this. So again, The Dark Side of the Moon, longtime favorite. I know they will be for me. They've been, at least as long as I've consulted them. And as I said, I'm ready and waiting for more. And I hope there is more. I love this project completely. It's so satisfying for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.